keep that in mind if you want to do multiple mentors. And mentors can mislead the hero intentionally. They don't have to tell them the truth the whole time. If they know the hero will react negatively to a piece of advice, they'll swap it, reverse psychology kind of thing, to get the hero to do what the mentor wants. Will they outright lie? Maybe, maybe not, because you don't want your mentor to become a bad guy. And if they outright lie to the hero, they're kind of getting close to that border of being a bad guy. But they can mislead. In this case, Obi-Wan in Star Wars, your father was a great Jedi warrior, and he kind of left it at that. Not that it turned to the dark side, became the most popular villain of all time. So, mentors can motivate as well. The hero gets stuck, the mentor shows up on the scene and says, rah, 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 go team, go.
Swift kick in the ass.
Yeah, swift kick in the ass, that works too. In the case of like a military setting, a sergeant or a drill sergeant or something like that can show up and say, hey, you, get over there, do that, stop being a pansy, that kind of thing. So there's different ways to motivate different people. I mean, anybody here who's been a manager realize that if you've got a team of 15 guys, you've got 15 different motivational techniques that you've got to learn and apply. So know your hero well enough to know what will motivate them, and know your mentor well enough to allow them to apply the proper motivation to that hero. Mentors can also plant things, and what I mean by that is they can think of every James Bond movie ever made, and Q, who is the gadget guy. It's like, oh, well, we have this watch that shoots a laser, and this ejection seat, and this oil slick thing on the car, blah, 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 and he sets him up with all these toys. Part of the fun of those movies is how is James Bond going to use that laser watch or the oil slick thing or the ejection seat throughout the movie? And I can't think of a single gadget that they pointed out that they gave to Bond that he didn't use. So that's a plant. And if you're writing episodic things like James Bond type things, people will start seeing that pattern in your writing, and when you introduce a plant, the reader will go, ooh, that's cool. I wonder how that's going to play out on page 300, and I'm only on page 22. So it's a great way to hook your reader into continuing on with the book. It's yet another way of doing that. So, and then I love where this page broke. Sexual initiation. Ooh, what's that?
That's a cliffhanger.
Yes, yes. Was not intentional, but when I noticed it, I left it. In this case, the mentor can teach the hero in ways of love and intimacy. And this is for, don't think Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker in this case. Yeah. This is mainly used for romance. If you want to do a little research, in India they've got a person called the Shakti who teaches people how to use sex, tantric type sex, to achieve higher consciousness. So that's just a little something for you to go off and research on your own. Maybe you can apply that in your writing somehow. You don't have to. That's just one of the things a mentor can do.
They don't know if they're male or female. I saw that on the Discovery Channel.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, they sometimes...
They hide their gender?
Everyone in the clan or whatever, the family or whatever, they have no idea if they're male or female.
Wow.
And they can
Wow.
work with the
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Would they come wrapped up or something, or how would you not know?
They generally are, like, typically
androgynous?
Not, yeah. You can't tell by looking at them. I mean, there are people here that way too, you know, but they're not, like, overly, like if it was a feminine person, they wouldn't be, you know, overly curvy or something like that. There wouldn't be, like, an excessive facial hair. And that person would also work to keep themselves looking that way as well.
That's their job, basically. Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool. Thank you. I didn't know that. And then the last note on this, we usually think of sexual initiation, intimacy as a soft and gentle and pure, and you got the soft light and all diffused light and all that. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be a very mean, nasty kind of thing. There's a lot of ways for the hero to learn. You just need to figure out what's appropriate for the story you're telling. So, and like heroes, there's different types of mentors. There's the dark hero. It lures the hero into danger, misleads the audience, the reader, as well as the hero. For those of you that read the Jim Butcher series, the Harry Dresden series, the Winter Queen, she's a mentor. She gives him boons, she gives him advice, but it's so warped and twisted.
You can't trust
You
it.
can't trust it, yeah. But sometimes Harry has to because he has no other choice. So that would be a dark mentor. Fallen mentor is somebody who's just past his prime. And fallen doesn't mean outcast. It just means not able to do the job anymore. In this case, Obi-Wan. He used to be a great Jedi warrior. Now he's old shuffling man. You know, if you ever watch closely the lightsaber fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, all of Obi-Wan's steps are shuffling steps. None of them are big long lunges or leaps or anything like that. The entire time, he's almost got both feet on the floor at all times. You can just tell by the way the robe moves around his body and all that. So he's a fallen hero. He can't do it anymore. He's past his prime. A continuing hero, or continuing mentor rather, they show up a lot throughout the stories to say, okay, here's your new task, here's your new job. Think of M from the James Bond. She's the boss lady as well, but she's a mentor. She's gives him the dossier of here's the bad guy and all the information we have about him. Here's the city you're going to and all the information we have about it, so on and so forth. So, and then you can have multiple mentors. I do this in my story where there's multiple teachers for different facets of the learning that Lord has to go through. J.K. Rowling did it in Harry Potter as well, with all the different teachers for Harry Potter and his friends. So, and then there can be comedic mentors as well. Think of Eddie Murphy's character in Beverly Hills Cop. He's kind of that. He gets Judge Reinhold's character to go off and do things by teaching him little tips and tricks and all that. So he's a comedic mentor in that situation. And then lastly, they could be a shaman. They could act as a healer or a guide or a visionary. And when I say healer, I'm not talking about just physical wounds. It could be emotional wounds, psychological wounds, physical as well. So there's different ways of healing your. There's a lot of ways to hurt your characters, and there's just as many ways to bring them back to their full capabilities. And then mentors usually pop up in Act 1. Everybody familiar with the 3-act kind of generic structure where you got the beginning, the middle, and the end? The book here goes into much more detail into where things happen in what act. I don't quite have that in here because there's a lot of charts and graphs, and we'll be putting these on the website, and I didn't feel like wholesale stealing from the book to put it on our website just because who knows what kind of legal repercussions that might have.
Sure. How much is that book?
This guy is...
Is it very old?
Price on the back. This is 3rd edition, copyright 2008, or sorry, 2007.
Okay. So, could get used maybe?
Oh yeah. Yeah, on half.com or something like that. I think I paid in the neighborhood of $30. Oh, here, up here, $27. So it's a cheap book for the size of it. And what I'm teaching you runs through. Basically, I'm covering this section of the book, and that's all.
We can get it on Kindle.
This section is not even going to cover here today. So. I don't know if it's on EPUB, Kindle, Nook, that kind of stuff. I don't know. So anyway, mentors usually show up in Act 1, and other mentors can step in and replace the original mentor as the first mentors vanish, die, no longer needed, that kind of thing. Think of the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Start with Obi-Wan, you end up with Yoda. So that is it on mentors. Any questions on those guys? All right, well, now to jump into some of the more or less, some of the less important character types. These guys show up for a scene or two, maybe. And as far as Threshold Guardians go, you'll have multiple Threshold Guardians, but for the most part, they just show up for one scene. And they're done. So you don't need a huge background in a folder full of notes about your Threshold Guardians. And maybe you plan on reusing them over and over and over throughout multiple stories and multiple books. So the Threshold Guardian presents a menacing face to the hero. You know, who here has seen Monty Python's Holy Grail? Okay, the guy at the bridge asks the 3 questions. He's a Threshold Guardian. I don't know. Yeah. So he's a Threshold Guardian, and he's probably my ultimate example for that because he puts forth a mean face. You know, he's got the gnarled eye and the hooked nose, and he's all hunched over and all that. Is he truly dangerous? No, not really. I think one person gets chucked over because they didn't know their favorite color. The Threshold Guardian can be overcome, bypassed, or even turned into an ally, depending on how you want things to work out. It is not the main antagonist or the main villain. It can be, in this case, in this structure, the main bad guy is called the Shadow. The Threshold Guardian can be a lieutenant, thug, underling of the Shadow, but 99% of the time they're not the Shadow themselves. Could be the Shadow in disguise, just testing the hero to see how strong they are at the moment, something along those lines. But it's not going to be an encounter with the Threshold Guardian is not going to be the climactic event of your book. It's just going to be a high point of danger. And it doesn't have to be a person or a thing. It could be bad luck, prejudice, social opposition, To Kill a Mockingbird. Tons of Threshold Guardians in there because of the black guy accused of, I forget now, it's been a long time, raping a white woman or a white girl, something like that. Tons of Threshold Guardians in there for Scout and her family because her dad is a lawyer defending this black guy in the South accused of raping a white girl. And it's a fantastic story. It's one of the better ones. An English teacher handed to me and said, "You must read this." And most of the time I went, okay, but this one I loved.
If you can't get through the book, watch the movie with Gregory Peck.
Yes.
Because that stays pretty close to the book.
So it can also be getting lost. A Threshold Guardian can be, the mentor told me to turn left. I arrived at the fork in the road and the right one looked better to me, so I'm going that way, and whatever they meet on that fork of the road, or the road itself, could be a Threshold Guardian. In Lord of the Rings, they formed the Fellowship of the Rings and they're heading off to Mount Doom, and they go through the pass and this nasty storm hits them and just pounds the hell out of them. That storm is a Threshold Guardian. It forces them to turn back and take a different path. Or they could have continued on and tried their luck. You know, if they'd continued on, who knows, different story. The Threshold Guardian usually invokes some of our internal demons. And when I say our, I'm talking about the hero, the writer, and the reader. And you know, it can be neuroses, phobias, emotional scars, self-limitations. The list just goes on and on as to what internal demons that you're trying to evoke out of the hero, out of the reader, out of yourself, that kind of thing. And like the storm in Lord of the Rings, it stopped progress and held them back. And so they had to take a different route, but it wasn't an absolute stop to the story. Because if you put in a Threshold Guardian that absolutely stops the story, if this is the thickness of your book and you absolutely stop the story at this point, what are you going to do with the rest of these pages? And really, it's a test for the hero, and I'll get more into that, into the stages of the hero's journey here in a bit. Any questions over Threshold Guardian?
That's like opposition, right?
Yeah, it's opposition, yeah. The Herald. So this archetype typically shows up in Act 1, especially in Greek mythologies, Greek stories. And they show up, they're a herald of the god, they are messenger of the god, something like that, and has some great announcement that changes the hero's life. In Star Wars, who's the herald?
Obi.
No.
The robots.
The robots, both of them together, are the heralds. They show up at Luke Skywalker's moisture farm, and the transmission, the holographic transmission from R2-D2 changes Luke's life. Sets him on his new path.
Silver Surfer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So up until the Herald arrives, the hero is getting by.